All right.
Maddie, what's going on? Maddie, what's happening right now?
Hold on. I'm gonna hold on.
In this video, I'm going to be making a few different furniture pieces for Maddie because she's wonderful and she deserves them, but also because she's been wanting these things for a while now and life just always seems to get in the way.
But I would like some more wooden things.
The list of items that Maddie's been wanting for the apartment are...
First thing I really think we both want is a coffee table. Second, I really do envision something for the plants.
What about the picture frames?
The shutters on the door. A shelf. Well, I want the cabinet fixed, but I don't think you said you can do that. Shelves for the nook and a chair.
We both want these things for our home, but sometimes as a furniture maker, it can just be hard to find the time to make things for yourself. The plan for this video is to make as many of those items as possible in 7 days. We have family coming into town, so there's a little bit of a time crunch. I've never built a chair before, and I don't think it's going to be possible to build all of those things and my first chair in 1 week. So we're going to have to save that for another video. So the list we're trying to complete is just going to be a coffee table, the 2 picture frames, and then a shelf for the basil plant, all in 7 days. And keep in mind, I work Monday through Friday, so I'm really just gonna have 2 full weekend days and then evenings after work. I think the timeline is going to be very tight, but I also think I'm gonna be able to do it. But I don't know. The shelf and picture frames are gonna be super straightforward. There won't be much planning or design that goes into making either of those. The coffee table, however, is gonna be a ton of fun. I already have a basic idea for the design that I want. I know that I want it to be 36 inches round just because we don't have the biggest living room. And then I know that I want it to have a 3-leg construction just because 3 legs will always sit flat even on an unlevel surface. The trick for the coffee table is going to be deciding on an edge profile for the top and then what to do about the legs. We decided to go with walnut for the coffee table just because there's already a ton of white oak in our apartment. I'm planning on the final thickness for the top being 2 1/8, and so I had to go and pick up 10-quarter walnut from the lumber yard. I bucked up the boards and then got a rough layout for the top, just using a compass and some trammel points. I'm going to be doing the milling process over the course of 2 days just to allow the wood to acclimate and also decrease the likelihood of any warping. And then in the meantime, I can get going on the legs. I am going to be making the legs 3 inches round. I think it's going to give it a little bit of a chunky look, but anything smaller than 2 1/2 is just going to start looking really thin for table legs. Since I'm using 10-quarter to make the legs, I had to do glue ups in order to get the desired thickness. In order to hide this, I ended up using the straighter edge grain at the glue line to hide the seams. And then once the legs are turned and round, it'll be even more difficult to spot. I'm going to be doing through tenons for the legs, and a through tenon just means that the tenon will be visible from the top of the table. It's not necessary by any means, but I think it's just going to add so much character to the table that it needs, since it's otherwise going to have a somewhat simple look. So I'll get the legs to their final thickness on the copy lathe and then hand turn the tenons once the mortises are cut on the tabletop. So I'm having a pretty tough time deciding on an edge profile for the coffee table. I made a sample of 2 different profiles for Maddie, and she seems pretty sure about the full round over. And I like it. I can visualize it as a finished product in my head, but I also think it's going to look a little bit like children's furniture, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Something I've been really struggling with on this project is indecision. especially when it comes to the design and even the video stuff. I think what it comes down to is this feeling that there's always just one right answer to every problem. And in those moments where I'm faced with making a decision, I'll end up just asking everyone around me. Like for the edge profile, I just literally went around asking everyone their opinion because I was so scared to make the wrong choice. But that's the beauty of woodworking, is that there's never one right way to solve a problem. And as far as design goes, I think at this point it's more important that I make strong choices and commit to them rather than second guessing myself. I finished milling the top and then got it into clamps. The next step is going to be cutting out the circle. I did this on the bandsaw using a jig that we have set up here at the shop. This is the 1-inch radius bit I'm going to use that will ultimately give the table its full 2-inch round over. Maddie had a great idea of mimicking the round over on the legs as well. And so I'm going to be using the same 1-inch radius bit to give the legs a round over, and I'll be doing that using the router table. I'm going to be using wedges to reinforce the through tenons. In order to accommodate for the wedges, I'll need to make a cut in the tenon, and I made a jig to be able to go ahead and do that on the table saw. I made sure the kerf of the blade split the glue line so that, again, you wouldn't be able to tell that the leg is made up of multiple pieces. So it's Thursday. I started on Saturday. The coffee table is oiled and finished. I just want to put a couple coats of poly on it, but I can't do that until Monday at the earliest. So that already puts me 3 days behind schedule, which isn't great. But I feel like I can finish the 2 picture frames and the shelf by tomorrow, which is Friday, and that would have me finishing everything except for the coats of poly in 7 days. These margins are razor thin. So I didn't film a single second of the shelf being made. I constructed it out of 2 pieces of plywood and then edge banded it and thought it would just be boring to watch. And I think I'm correct. That being said, here's an overview of the picture frames. I'm using white oak and maple to make the frames. I put a chamfer on the inside of both frames before heading to the table saw. Then I cut the rabbet that will house the print glass and the backer. I glued up the frames and then reinforced the joints with dowels. I think these will ultimately look really nice, but they also provide a lot of reinforced strength for an otherwise not so strong joint. I wanted to give the maple frame a darker tone, and so I used a stain comprised of vinegar and steel wool. I oiled both frames and then secured the print and glass with frame points. It was close, but ultimately I didn't make the deadline. It ended up taking from Saturday to Sunday, so 9 days. And then I had my coworker Sam. He's an amazing finisher. I had him put 3 coats of poly on the coffee table to finish it off. And here's how everything came out. Looking back at the process now, I'm really happy with the way everything came out, and I'm glad that I went with a bolder design choice for the coffee table. But if I'm being honest with myself, on this project, Maddie made a lot of the design choices. And ultimately, that really freed me up to create without the criticism that normally accompanies something I design. In my experience, marriage isn't always this even 50-50. Sometimes one of us needs to lean more heavily on the other, and that's natural. It's just that during this process and this project, I've been doing a lot of the leaning. I think indecisiveness can be a form of perfectionism in disguise. I certainly struggle with it on a regular basis. I'm just not sure how helpful perfectionism is when you're in the middle of learning a new skill. Moving forward, I'll just try to give myself more space to be in the process as I learn about design and find my own style.
It's just how I envisioned it. Oh my gosh, so cool. My little altar, my little witch altar.
I saw a great quote recently that said, "A good marriage is one where each partner secretly suspects they got the better deal." And I suspect.
Would you say I designed this?
Yeah. I don't want to, I guess.